Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here with the System Simplified podcast, where we interview top entrepreneurs, founders, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And this podcast is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group. At Business Success Consulting Group, we create custom processes and tailor-made business systems so businesses can thrive and grow. All right, and today's guest is David Baer. Hi, David.
Hey, Adi, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm awesome. Thank you for having me on here.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I'm so excited you're here because, in your introduction, when I asked you for a short bio, you said that you're a wine geek, a theater geek, and a marketing geek. And
yes.
Yeah, so I guess it's 3 times geek, which is amazing. So I don't think I ever had a podcast guest that is a 3-time geek.
That's what we call it. We call it a triple threat, is what we call it.
That's
Actually,
right.
That's in the theater business. That's what they call it when you can sing, dance, and act. So I'm a theater guy, a wine guy, and a marketing guy.
Wonderful. And you are the creative partner at the Prepared Group, which is the marketing strategy company. And you're here today because we're going to talk about email marketing. And you just recently wrote a book, Email Marketing for Small Businesses, Part 1. And I read the book. It's amazing. It has so much information. And what I really like about that book is that it has action items at the end of each chapter that people that read the book can actually follow it and get results. So I think it's amazing. And we're going to talk all about systematizing your email marketing, why email marketing is important, tips and tricks on how to do it. Maybe you'll give us a little bit of an insight of part 2 of the email marketing for small businesses. And we're going to have a great conversation. But before we start, I love for you to tell the story of how you even got into marketing and the connection between the theater and marketing.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting one because I started professionally in the theater industry. I was a stage manager, and I started working in a performing arts center, managing the facility and managing the front of house staff, so the ushers and the box office folks and all of that. And this was back in the mid 1990s at kind of the early period of online marketing. This was back when people had Prodigy and America Online, right? You've Got Mail, right? Remember that?
AOL, absolutely. You've Got Mail, yes.
And back then, people were eager to use this new tool, this new communication method. And so we started using email to promote our classical music concerts and theater events and all of that. And I started doing a lot of writing, direct response writing, which is that type of marketing as opposed to branding. And that's where I really got my early chops in email marketing. So at that point, I wasn't a marketing guy. I was still a facility manager. I just happened to be one of the more technically inclined people on the staff. And so I did a bunch of email marketing back in 1996, way before, it became a common thing to market via email. And back in those days, your open rates for emails were really, really high because people were giddy with excitement when an email would, come into, they dial up, waiting to see, that modem would make that noise, and then you'd get the announcement that there was something there for you. And so I was putting smiles on people's faces back then because I was sending them email.
Gosh, it's like, today's Thursday. We are recording this on a Thursday. It's like throwback Thursday, totally. In terms of yes, I remember that, the dial tone of the modem. Probably there are people listening to us that go, what are they talking about? But that's, for those of you that know, they remember the 90s, yes, that dial tone. Sometimes you get connected, sometimes you don't. The AOL, you got mail, and then you read it and somebody's actually inviting me to the theater via email. How awesome is that?
Yeah, so that was it. And then I left that industry and I went into the wine business, which you know, and I was hired in the wine business to manage events, big trade shows, things like that, because of my event production experience. But in the wine industry, events are marketing, right? And so I suddenly became a professional marketer when I entered the wine industry. And that's really where I started to educate myself around a lot more than what I had, sort of just been practicing up until that point. So that's sort of my move from theater to wine to full-fledged marketing consultant, which I've been doing pretty much for coming up on almost 12 years now.
Incredible. And we, of course, have to give a shout out to Ken Cook, who is your business partner that actually introduced us. And, I've known Ken for years, work with him, refer clients to him, etc. And now you're together in the prepared group. So before we go into talk about email marketing, I would encourage our listeners to also check your website, which is thepreparedgroup.com, right?
Thepreparedgroup.com. We couldn't have made it easier.
That's right. And it's a great website. Check it out. All right, David, let's talk about email marketing. So obviously email marketing now is a little bit different than 1996. We get a little bit more emails, I would say, than I got in 1996. There is a lot of more promotion coming via email. And I will start with the broad question is, do you think that email marketing still works?
I think it works, more than ever. It's not, does it still work? It's still the best avenue to generate sales. Now, there's a few reasons why it still works, and it works more than ever. Reason number one is that it is still more intimate than any other communication channel that you have with your prospects or customers, right? So you think about how you engage with email personally. Most of us, email is sitting in our back pocket or in our purse or in our, or probably sitting in our hand, right, inside of our phone. And it's a one-to-one communication that can be more persuasive and more personal and personable than pretty much anything else out there, right? Billboards can't do that. Radio ads can't do that. Social media posts can't do that. And so it still has this psychological advantage over other avenues. The other thing is that unlike 1996, we have billions upon billions upon billions of people using email. In fact, just during the pandemic alone, those numbers have nearly doubled the number of people who actually have an email account and are using it. Isn't that shocking? First of all, I was surprised that so few people compared to now, right? A year and a half, 2 years ago, had email, that all these new email accounts were
I thought
open.
Everybody has email. Right. Seriously.
But the amount of registered email accounts has nearly doubled is one statistic I've heard.
Well, it's also like multiple. Yep. I know that during I can think about myself, like, whenever I add staff, I register new email accounts. Mm-hmm. But I get it. It's like, so basically it's maybe people did have emails, but maybe now they have other email accounts, or the more people are using it for work or whatnot. So basically the number of email accounts just basically doubled. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I think you have to also so you're absolutely right. There's a single individual has multiple accounts, but you also have people who were not communicating using that method because they had no need to. But right. Suddenly they're separated from people and now have a need to communicate. And since nobody talks on the phone anymore, email was, the next, and they don't have fax machines anymore. It made sense. Now that's also, just here in the US or in North America, but think about all of the other countries in the world where email was not nearly as prevalent as it is here. And it's become the numbers in a lot of those countries have, really skyrocketed compared to where they were before.
Sure. Okay, good. So email marketing is effective, but obviously you need to do it correctly, right? I can tell you that the thing that I dislike the most is when I talk to somebody, I meet somebody, and before I know it, I'm on their list, right? This is kind of like, oh, don't get into my email like this, but that's me. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I'm not going to point any fingers at anybody I happen to be a business partner with, but yes, people used to, take a business card at a meeting and say, oh, okay, well, now I'm putting you on my list. And that is totally the wrong way to do it in terms of leaning into the psychological advantage that I was just referring to, right? Because if you think about how you're using email, or you ought to be using email if you're using it effectively, it's really to help guide somebody through the development of a relationship with you.
Right.
And they enter your email list because you've promised something specific, right? And then you deliver on that thing that you've promised and then guide them in the direction of the next step, the next opportunity, whatever it is that your business, offers. And when you're added to a list without that context, it becomes an unwelcome pest in your inbox.
Right, exactly. So, but what are your thoughts if, let's say, I have a client, somebody became my client. Is it okay to add them to my newsletter list?
Yeah. So look, there's two different pieces of the email puzzle when it comes to relationship. And one of the things that you probably read about in the book was about the importance of segmentation of your list, right?
Correct.
You don't want to be sharing the same message to everybody on your list. So yes, if you have a client, first of all, somebody who is a client, and we all experience this when we buy something from a company and then suddenly we are being marketed to. But if they're doing it smartly, they're not marketing to us as if we've never bought from them before. They are now sort of welcoming us into the family and saying, well, since you have done this, why not now do that, right? And so the types of emails that you would be sending to an existing client, if your newsletter content, if you're sending something that's universal and helpful to everybody, some of whom are prospects, some of whom are existing clients, sure, it's totally appropriate because it's adding to the value that you're delivering as a service provider. Right. But if you are adding them to an email list saying, make an appointment to work with me, right? And they already are, that's a problem.
It is. So segmentation, definitely. So let's go. This is the System Simplified podcast. We're all about systems and creating systems. Me, I'm all about processes, systems. And I'd love for you to walk me through how to set an email marketing system that is simple and easy. And of course, people should read your book because you're going into details there. It's going from how to collect the identities, what to do with them, the segmentation and all of that. And you actually have the action items, which is fantastic. So, but walk us through a little bit here. If I want to set up an email marketing system, what is the first step? Walk me through the steps.
Sure. Well, first of all, there are different types of tools out there that you want to sort of think about what's best to use. There are some that are simply marketing, and there are others that are marketing tied to a CRM, a client relationship manager, customer relationship management tool, which might be used for tracking the sales progress of a relationship. And so depending on the sophistication of your business, you want to consider one that's tied to a CRM rather than simply an email marketing tool, because you want to be able to marry those two automation tools together. And if you can get it all under one umbrella, it's going to be more efficient, right? So that's piece number one. In terms of how I like to use email in its most basic, simple form, the first simplest way that you could do it is to offer a newsletter. So you referred to a newsletter, and that could be a universal, generic, this is appropriate for everyone newsletter. and you have a certain promise of what people are going to get inside that newsletter when you offer them the opportunity to sign up for it, opt into it, subscribe to it, right? So I said that 3 times in 3 different ways so that people understand you're not taking their business card or you're downloading the contact list from your local chamber of commerce or whatever, right? or the PTA, list. and just subscribing people to your campaigns, to your list. You need to give people a reason to subscribe. Newsletters are the least compelling thing to try to offer a subscription to, right? How many times have you gone to a website of a professional services practitioner and they say, sign up for my newsletter to get great updates on, this topic? Nobody is salivating to learn more about, I'm sorry to say this, Adi, but, business operations systems, right?
It's a good point, but, I can tell you that, I have signed for, let's say if there is a company that I'm interested in and they actually, let's say if I can tell you from one experience, if I arrive to their site because of a blog that I like, let's say, for instance, we take unrelated to business, let's say, me, I really like health food, everything that has to do with healthy lifestyle. So I have those blogs that I find it's very helpful. And I got an advice that actually helped me. I go like, wait a second, I would love for them to see it in my inbox so I don't forget about them. Mm-hmm. I just subscribed to one for a handyman, do-it-yourself kind of website. Service, I guess, that they provide this newsletter because I go like, wow, this is a great idea. What other ideas have? So instead of me reaching out, I now want them to reach to me. Yes. So I understand that it might not be very exciting, but I'm just like, I have to experience that before. If I experience help from them, then I will go, I want to subscribe to your newsletter because even if I'm not going to look at your newsletter every single time, I have the option of when I'm scrolling through my inbox or where I actually take it to the next level in terms of productivity. And I have an app. I use SaneBox.
Yes.
And I actually have a Sane newsletter, which is amazing. It basically takes all the newsletters out of your inbox and put it in one folder. But what it does, it allows me to have my inbox clean and work in my inbox, but allows me to actually look at all the newsletters at once and go into those that I'm interested, as opposed to disrupting me in the middle of my work. So that way I actually I'm more inclined to read things and respond to offers because it's all concentrated in the half hour that I give myself to do it, or 15 minutes or whatnot, right?
So here's the challenge, Adi. I love that you do all of that stuff. You're a rare breed, right? And the job of the email newsletter or the email in terms of a marketing tool is to get people to express interest in addressing a problem that they have, solving something, or reaching a desired goal.
Yeah.
And so the idea that signing up for a newsletter to stay current on latest trends or something like that is going to identify somebody who is a likely potential buyer. It's not the best mechanism, and relying on people being as curious as you are is also probably not a good approach for most businesses. So yes, you're right.
The curiosity is for what I'm interested in. So I'm sure, like if you have somebody that is interested in a specific thing, they do that because they will subscribe. But what we're talking about is that you want to create that curiosity or interest in a specific business that I might not have the curiosity to begin with.
Sure.
Because that is let's say.
So yeah, it's not necessarily that there's no interest in that business, but that if we're trying to identify somebody who we can funnel into a sales process,
right?
The mechanism of sign up for our newsletter is probably the least compelling way to get them in.
Got it.
And so if for you to and people could be subscribing for any number of reasons, right? You may have absolutely no interest in ever buying anything. You just want to learn something about that. But if they offered you, 5 steps to achieve this outcome, or for a lot of businesses, service providers, I like doing this sort of an opt-in offer for home services people. Some kind of guide to how to hire somebody just like me, right? How do you vet somebody properly to be the roofing company that you hire, or the interior decorator that you hire for your new home? Well, that's a great sort of way to identify that somebody's actually on the path of hiring somebody for that service. Or if you're in, a business where you're trying to resolve certain common problems, chiropractors might offer something about overcoming sciatica issues. And so you're identifying somebody out there who has the problem that you have the solution to in your business. And that is a much more effective mechanism to get somebody to join the list.
I agree 100%, because you have more people that are going after that want to know. Like, for instance, for me, in my business, I'm offering the ebook that I wrote about how to increase profitability through systematization of your business. And it's a very, very down-to-earth, step-by-step guidebook of what you can do. And then people sign up and then I sign them up for the newsletter because they obviously are interested and want to know more. But I agree with you. I mean, the one that you said at the beginning is, I actually saw that in terms of somehow I was looking for a contractor, and there was a guide of like 10 steps, 10 things you need to know in order to find the contractor is right for you. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I downloaded it, and it's great. It's really gave me good advice that I could use. And now I ended up on the mailing list, but that's okay because that person helped me. So the list exchange that I can give back is being on their list and being connected. So I can see the difference. I mean, I can see that it basically, consider you have people that are very curious. So thank you for telling me that I'm curious. But then it's kind of like the bell curve, right? So you have the people that are curious that might be going to your newsletter, but it's more here you go. Here is a help, or subscribe, or do this. And then as a result, you're going to end on my list.
Right. And the difference between this approach versus the newsletter approach is a newsletter may be something that you publish once a month, maybe once a week. A lot of businesses don't really, when they're thinking about newsletter, don't think about that sort of frequency, right? They think, oh, well, I have a guy who sends it out quarterly. And I'm like, every time I get it, I'm like, who's that again? Because it's so infrequent that I can't remember, who he is, why I signed up for it, et cetera. But, so if you sign up for a newsletter and then you don't get anything in your inbox for at least 6 days or 7 days or 30 days, well, it's lost immediacy. It's lost relevance to you at that point.
Good point.
But so that's another part of why I don't like the newsletter concept in general. Now you can send those out. In fact, it's a great thing to send out on an ongoing basis after you have done what I'm about to suggest, which is that if you offer we're calling these lead magnets, right? These I'm going to give you this in exchange for your email address. And so a lead magnet, like 10 things to think about before you hire a contractor, or whatever that was, 10 steps to hiring the right contractor, that is going to be positioned in the first, as the delivery of that is the first of a series of emails guiding you toward their next step in their sales process, right? So if you sign up for this thing, I would hope that the next email you got after it was, here's the thing you signed up for. And by the way, I deliver those via email. I never, ever deliver them on the next page.
Right.
Right. And and here's why. But listeners may not. A lot of people use fake email addresses when they fill out those forms just to get the thing on the next page. And so as the business, you are paying for people to be on your list. It may not be a lot, but you're paying for people who don't exist to be on your list. And there's a downside to that beyond the fact that it is a fake email address, which is that your deliverability of your emails, as seen by Outlook and Gmail and the sender platform that you're using, is going to be downgraded when fewer emails that you send are actually deliverable and are opened. And so what happens over time, as you have more people on your list, I've gone in a completely different direction here. If you,
it's totally fine. No, because I'm thinking, okay, so let's say somebody goes on my lead magnet. Okay, so because I deliver it via email, but I don't know. I have to ask my web guy what happens. But let's say somebody goes, okay, my email address is anyone@gmail.com. Okay, I mean, obviously the email is going to bounce. They're not going to get the free ebook. But the anyone@gmail.com still is going to get registered in my system, right? It will go into my email marketing software,
Correct.
but it will bounce back as an incorrect. So it still does that, but they're not going to get the free ebook.
And because you have bounces, you are going to be downgraded in terms of a sender. Your sender quality score. I don't know if that's what they call it. I don't know this stuff that well, but I'm still. So what should I do? Because you see what I'm doing what you're saying, but it's still registering because they're not downloading it directly. Like if let's say you go to my website and you go to subscribe to my newsletter or get my ebook. Yes.
To get my ebook, you will have to enter an email and then it sends you an email to download.
Yeah. So what I do. I'm going to answer two parts of the question because I don't know how you intended this, but all this information is useful. So what I do is I scrub my list or I clean my list every 90 days. I will check for unopens, and most of the software out there that you might be using for your email marketing is already sophisticated enough to identify bounces and unsubscribe them automatically. Because they are also concerned about their reputation as a sending platform, and so they will unsubscribe those individuals. But here's what I do on the opt-in page on the form: is I'll say very clearly, enter your email address, and this thing that I'm promising will arrive in your inbox shortly, or and I'll send it to you, or something like that. So it's very clear to them that it's going to be arriving via email, and it won't be there on the next page.
Amazing tip. I'm going to that's my website does not say that, so I am actually going to add it because that's what we do. But so people will understand that that it will arrive through the inbox. You see, I just learned something new, so thank you.
Okay, so let's get to the next piece here, because what we want to do with this, giving the lead magnet away, is to have a goal at the end of that short-term sequence of email that we're sending them, which is to get them to take a certain action. It might be to get them to book an appointment. It might get them to come into the store. It might be to sign up for a webinar. It might be to go to a page on a website and put something in a shopping cart and buy it, right? There's all kinds of outcomes that you may desire from this initial engagement with somebody. And so this is what I would call a short-term nurture campaign, where you tie the thing that they requested directly to a logical sort of outcome that you would guide them toward after that thing is sent. And that might be anywhere from 5 to 15 or 20 emails, depending on the sophistication of the next action that they need to take, how much information they need, how much convincing they need before they can take
let's take the
action.
Contractor. So we downloaded the guide of how to choose. Let's say it's a painting company.
Mm-hmm.
So we downloaded the guide on how to choose your best contractor, the painter contractor. Okay, so I have that guide. I read it. What would be like a sequence of emails, and what would be the call of action at the end, the call to action at the end?
Sure. So email number 1 would be, here's the thing I promised, enjoy it, right? Download it here. And maybe you include a quick introduction. Or email number 2 is, hey, yesterday you requested this thing. If you didn't see the download link or you didn't see that email, here it is again. By the way, let me introduce myself. Okay. Email number 3 would be, did you get the guide? Here's something that most people miss when they go through the guide, but it's really important. And so it's a sequence of reinforcing some of the things that are in the guide or building out some of the ideas that are in the guide. For example, when people are going through this process of vetting painting contractors, one of the things that they often take a shortcut on is XYZ, whatever it might be. Let me caution you, do not do that. In fact, we'll make it easier for you to accomplish that. If you want to give us a call right now and book an appointment, we'll come over to your house and blah, 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 right? So then you're sort of moving from here's the process to follow in order to hire somebody to inserting yourself as the business into how you can help them. And then you're guiding them toward whatever your call to action is. So the painting contractor might want to come over to give you a quote. And so you tie the things that you teach them in the guide to how you operate and then incentivize them repeatedly, because they're not going to take action on just one opportunity in one email, right? So you repeatedly incentivize them to get that appointment. And you're going to need to use different angles in doing that. And this is where the psychology comes in, right? There's the urgency in terms of, maybe the painting contractor's guide is about, the hiring the right painting contractor to beautify your house so you can get an extra $50,000 when you sell it, right? Well, then there's some urgency there. And so the emails are speaking to somebody who is getting ready to sell their home, right? If it's about shaming them for having an ugly exterior that they haven't, painted or kept up, and the neighbors are all looking at them every time they pass by, going, "Gosh, they're a blight on our neighborhood." Well, that's another angle that you use for. You really should make that appointment now. Right. So you want to use as many different angles because people are going to be triggered by different approaches, and this is where I say the psychology comes in.
That's a great advice. Absolutely. So what we learned so far is that we need some kind of an email magnet in order to get them to the list. Once they get on the list, then it depends on the type of business, but then you want to also not just send them information, general information, but it's information specifically to what they already requested, with an end in mind, with a goal of a call to action, which will be they'll come to the store, schedule an appointment, or do something. So you actually ask them to do something at the end of that series of emails, and it can all be automated. What else do you use marketing email for?
Well, I want to make one more point because some people are going to say, okay, so they make the appointment after the second email, but I'm going to keep sending them all these emails telling them to make the appointment. Right? That's a problem. Most of the well-constructed email software out there will enable you to shut that automation off based on a trigger or a goal. They'll all have their own proprietary term for it, where basically what you're saying is once this happens, once either I come in manually and tell you to stop sending this person, which is not a great system, or once an appointment has been made and this, page has loaded and the software is tracked that thank you confirmation page has loaded after the appointment's been made, shut off this campaign, right? That's an important part of the process you want to make sure is properly built so that you're not, sending somebody a continued message after they've taken the action that you want them to take.
Absolutely. And, your book goes over the how to do things. But, a lot of us busy entrepreneurs will not have the time to do it. And unless you have a marketing director that can do it, right? I know that I would go, when I read the book, I go like, this is amazing because it got me to understand the importance and what needs to be done. But then I gave it to my marketing person, right? But it is. I can do it myself. I'm just being honest. You wrote it in such a way that I could do it myself if I had some more time to do it. But I think it's actually also good that you can delegate it. And it's an amazing thing. And I told her, we need to do that. So, but you also help businesses do that, right? So if somebody is listening to right now and saying, David, this is awesome, but I need somebody to help me with the strategy. The prepared group can help with that strategy.
Yeah, and we go well beyond email marketing. Email is a pivotal piece of the communication process, but we do strategy that's well beyond simply email communications.
Right. And the thing is that email communication will work if it's part of the strategy, right? You can't just do like email communication. It has to be part of your entire marketing strategy, because if you don't know who is your target market, right? If you don't know who you want to communicate to, if you don't know how to communicate, then it's just going to be like very segmented. It's not going to be part of the overall strategy. So I think that email marketing should be part of your overall strategy.
Yeah. So what happens next, I think you were asking. And so
that's right.
Let me address that, because once you finish this short-term nurture sequence, some people will have taken you up on the offer to, come to their house and give them a quote. And some people will have ignored all of that because they are, looking at a whole bunch of painters and they haven't gotten time to even open any of the emails or whatever reason they have. And so you don't want to forget about them. So you have two choices. One is to move them, and you can do this through automation as well, over to a newsletter, which is just generic content that keeps you in front of them. And it might have, and this is what I do, it might have a not very pushy, not very forceful call to action. Or it could say, by the way, if you're still looking for, or if you happen to be looking for, or if you know somebody who is looking for, right? So you're not necessarily saying it's time for you to get your quote, call us up, but you're sort of just creating context in your email to be able to put that link to your booking calendar, for example.
Right.
But the rest of the time is just generic evergreen content. Might be, here's what the hot colors are right now in the market, or I was going to say, this is what Martha Stewart approves, but as many people who don't know what a modem is probably don't know who Martha Stewart is.
I think she's still on. I think people do know that.
Well, it's a good thing. That was a joke. Anyway,
yes.
So that's one way to do it, is very just easily drop them into a broadcast campaign that you are sending out regularly. And when I say regularly, that means more frequently than monthly. I would say at least twice a month for pretty much any business out there, and more frequently for other businesses. I send out a weekly email, and then I intersperse when we are promoting something heavily with daily emails around that promotion. And you should expect some people to get frustrated and unsubscribe. And that's a good thing, because most of those people, not all of them, were probably not interested in buying anything from you anyway.
Right.
So some of them, lost opportunity, but that's okay, because they probably would have been pain in the neck customers.
Right.
So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is a similar scenario, except instead of doing those broadcasts live, or writing your 4 broadcasts for the upcoming month and then having them always be new content, you could actually create evergreen long-term nurture campaigns, which is to say that you could write a campaign that everybody would receive after they have gone through the initial, 5 or 10 or so emails to get them to take that action. Then after they've taken that action and you want to keep staying in front of them, you just send everybody that next sequence, which can be pre-written. And frankly, you don't have to sit down and write 52 emails at the beginning of the year. You can still write them one week at a time and just add one to the end of that campaign sequence.
So what would be an example with our contractor example that we gave?
Well, I think the contractor is probably the easiest for doing evergreen content, because, unless you're coming up with topical, here's what's in the news now, here's what's hot and trendy now kind of content, you could talk about generic, good, usable information for somebody who might be wanting to hire that type of a business. The other thing you can do, and I highly recommend you do, is don't always talk about yourself and what your business delivers. So if you know that your audience is homeowners.
Right.
Well, you can send them email about things that homeowners would care about and become more appreciated in the inbox because you're now delivering useful, actionable, entertaining information that a homeowner can use. And it's not always about, and that's why you should hire us as
Right.
the punchline or as the call to action in every email you send.
Absolutely. And I think people will also be more inclined to forward those emails to others because there is important information or good information. And that's also what you want because you want people to forward it to you. So then they will subscribe to your email address, to your newsletters, right? Or to whatever you're sending.
Absolutely. And I would say that if you hope that somebody's going to forward it, you're not going to get too many people forwarding it. But if you tell people to share it, and I think you're on our email list, I use that sometimes as a postscript at the end of an email. I will say, even if this isn't right for you, if you know somebody this is right for, please pass it along to them.
Absolutely.
Or some variation of that. People are compliant. I can't say that in the day and age of COVID because people aren't compliant about everything, but they are compliant when you give them direction or instruction far more than they are if you don't tell them anything.
Yeah, and I think people want to help, and that's where the compliance comes in. If they enjoy your newsletter and they find it valuable or they did business with you, they have a tendency to give and to want to help you, right? Because they, it was beneficial for them, so they basically want to pass it forward and refer more people or forward it to more people.
Absolutely. Now, there's a much more complex layered thing that I'm not going to get into too much detail with, except to sort of describe it, sort of from the bird's eye view, if you'll, indulge me for a moment here. Because I think what I've described is sort of an easy way for any business to get going. You have, the initial opt-in, and then you move people to a long-term relationship that's universal and could be shared with everybody. But what about those people who become a client or a customer and they might purchase one thing or hire you for something, and then there's the next step that you would like to direct them to in your business? Maybe there's something, we see this on Amazon all the time. Well, people who bought this also bought that, or would you like this bundle together? So there's all types of additional recommendations that you might want to make to people. And you can also use email marketing, particularly through automation, to do this effectively. And this is a place where I think a lot of businesses are missing opportunities to deepen that relationship and earn additional revenue simply by automating the upsell, cross-sell, et cetera. And so that's kind of the next level thing that you want to think about in your business is, what are the things that we can systematize that we're currently doing manually around upsell and cross-sell that email can help support?
Beautifully said. Absolutely. So I think what we learned today, you gave us a wealth of information, and definitely I recommend everyone read your book, which is Email Marketing for Small Businesses.
Well, it's called Small Business Email Marketing Part 1.
Small Business Email Marketing, but it's like, so David Baer, go to Amazon. I bought it there on Amazon. So David Baer, Small Business Email Marketing Part 1.
And by the way, I'm about to finish Part 2. That should be online.
I'm about to finish Part 2. So when you finish Part 2, we're going to have also Part 2 of this podcast. But you definitely want to read this email. Read the book, because it's very simple to read, very simple to understand. And if you're like me and you want to delegate, totally easy to do that. You can also do it yourself. Depends on the size of your team and what do you do, what hats you wear, right? And you definitely can contact David because he's going to help you figure out the strategy. And what we learned today is, how to set up the email marketing, meaning like having that lead magnet that will allow people to subscribe and join the group and really want to be part, really want to receive your emails as a consequence of that, right? Of not just like randomly adding people. And then when they join the community, how to actually engage them with things that are relevant to them. I think that's the main thing, David, is like communication has to be relevant, right? I mean, it's like communicating with, like we're communicating right now. Can you imagine having a conversation and I have my own agenda and you have your own and we don't communicate about the same thing. And then it's just, we're just going to basically not have a nice conversation. And the same thing with email. If you're pushing content that has no interest or people don't want, it creates this basically it's basically people want to unsubscribe and don't want to have anything to do with you. But if you actually communicate on that channel that you found, that somebody joined that channel and you put communication that is interesting, that is beneficial, that is friendly, is kind, people want that and they will continue and they will look for your next email. I know like you actually need to subscribe to David's emails because then you will see what he's talking about. His emails are funny. They are written in such a way that they are very kind. They are interesting to me so that he's interested in what I, as a potential customer or whomever, that you're writing the emails to would want to hear, or as a referral partner, whatnot. It's just like those emails are fun. They have humor in them. They're written nicely. They're very they're unpretentious and they're not pushy at all. So I think that would be a good thing for our listeners to actually subscribe to your email so they can see how to do it. So if somebody wants to subscribe to your emails, what would they do?
Sure. Well, you'll remember the point I made earlier that we want people on our list who are interested in, buying from us ultimately and solving a particular problem. So what we did was we put together a lead magnet, which was all about how to realize predictable revenue in your business. And it's a checklist. So if somebody's interested in that, they can find it at thepreparedgroup.com/ get this, checklist.
Wow. Okay. So thepreparedgroup.com/checklist.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get the checklist and you're also going to get onto this email list, which is, I love it. I love your emails, David. I read them and I love getting them. And yes, maybe here and there I miss some, but I usually read all of them and I think they're incredible. So
now the pressure's on for me to be funny and entertaining. Uh-oh.
Yeah, well, I think you already are. So just recycle the ones you already sent in the past. It's going to be okay.
Perfect.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast and sharing all this wealth of information. I'm sure we're going to have you here in the future for part 2 so we can have more information.
Excellent. Well, Adi, I appreciate being invited on. And as you can tell, this is a subject I'm just beginning to learn a little bit about. So I was glad that I was able to impart what, elementary knowledge I have.
Yeah. That's the way you are. What can I say? All right, David, thank you so much.
Thank you, Adi. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.